Hello there folks, my name is Spoonks and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is the show where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did. So let's get started. Number 5 was Transformers Rise of the Beasts, making $11 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $123 million and a worldwide total of $341 million. So the film was able to pick itself back up from a steep drop-off last weekend. It was able to drop 43% this weekend, which, is better than nothing and puts its domestic total just $4 million away from the domestic total of Bumblebee and $7 million away from the domestic total of Transformers the last night. And given where it's at, I think it is safe to say it will be able to surpass those movies. Sure, it won't be able to reach the highs of the prior Transformers movies, but at the very least it'll be able to exceed the lowest lows of this franchise. It shows that audiences are warming up back to this franchise, and it does seem to be picking itself back up, maybe having a little bit more steam left in it, and it should be able to get over the doubling point of its $195 million budget, which at this point I think is better than nothing, probably the best thing they could hope for, honestly. So yeah, while not a great run, it's certainly not terrible. Again, it is improving over the prior entries to this franchise, and it should get over the doubling point. And considering all the competition it had to face this month, I think once again this is a best case scenario for this movie. Number 4 was No Hard Feelings, opening with $15 million this weekend domestically and $24 million worldwide. So this film performed a bit better than expected to a lot of people. In fact, you'll see in a moment that it was a pretty close race between the number 4 and number 3 spot. This movie actually put up quite a bit of stiff competition for the number 3 film, which we'll get to in a moment. And it shows that Jennifer Lawrence can still open a movie. It shows that R-rated original comedies can still open well, given the budget and the audience interest for it. And once again, given the budget of this movie costing $45 million, I think this is a pretty decent start. I'm sure it'll be able to surpass that very soon, and the audience reaction to this movie has been very positive. In fact, I don't know if this was just me, but for the past 3 days I've been seeing this movie trend on Twitter, which, that's gotta mean something. And also on CinemaScore, it earned a B+ rating, which is the same rating that Good Boys got, which funny enough is by the same director. So if it's able to perform like that, or just have insanely good legs this summer movie season, I think we could see a sleeper hit here. Sure, it's got a lot of competition on the horizon, especially with the fact that there is another R-rated comedy coming out in 2 weeks with Joyride. But given that this is definitely something that leans more towards solid counter programming, a smaller type movie compared to everything else, it being a huge summer blockbuster, again, I think this could be very solid counter programming and play itself out throughout the summer. So yeah, this is a pretty decent start off for the movie. I hope to see good things for the film. I think it's got a shot at being a sleeper hit, but as far as its opening, yeah, it's a pretty good start, honestly. Number 3 was The Flash, making $15.1 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $87 million and a worldwide total of $210 million. Oh boy, The Flash. Things just keep getting worse for this movie. It's bad enough that it lost number 1 this weekend. It's bad enough that it dropped 72% this weekend. But the fact that this movie was only able to beat No Hard Feelings by just $140,000 this weekend is utterly embarrassing. For the type of movie this is, and considering this is the second weekend, it should have been able to beat that movie by like at least $20 million. The fact that it could only be able to beat it by again $140,000 is absolutely insane. The word of mouth has just tanked. This movie is just so done. Yeah, worldwide, it's 10 million away from surpassing its initial $220 million budget, but the damage is already done. That is not where Warner Brothers wanted this movie to be, especially in its second weekend. This was the movie they put all of their money into, and unfortunately, it's just falling flat on its face. No one really wants to see this movie. And keep in mind, once again, this was a slow weekend. The only new major wide release was No Hard Feelings. It had everything going for it this weekend, and it still collapsed. And with the competition on the horizon, it's only going to get worse for this movie, sadly. So once again, The Flash continues to utterly disappoint itself. At least in Warner Brothers' case, they still have Barbie, and even the Meg may even have a shot at beating this. But yeah, as far as this movie goes, it's pretty much done at this point. Number 2 was Elemental, making 18 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of 65 million and a worldwide total of $121 million. So as I expected last weekend, the movie was able to pull itself back up a bit, not only getting the jump over The Flash, but holding very well, honestly, in its second weekend, just falling 38% prior to the previous weekend, which is a great hold, especially in its second weekend. It shows that audiences are really resonating with this movie, and it continues to exceed expectations, so much so that it has already made half of its budget worldwide, and I think it's got a shot of making that budget back worldwide too, especially with the fact that it still has a couple places to open, I believe in the UK and Japan. So hopefully when it finally reaches those places, it'll be able to surpass its initial budget. And yeah, honestly, this is turning out to be a much better than expected box office performance, especially given the opening last weekend. The word of mouth has really carried this movie out. I saw on the daily numbers, this movie was really doing well, and again, it even overperformed The Flash a couple days, even taking the number 1 spot, I believe, on Thursday, which was exceptional. So yeah, this movie seems to be doing way better than expected. It's certainly not the disaster that was Lightyear last year. Still, though, the big hurdle this movie has to jump over is that budget. I don't know what they were thinking with the $200 million budget. That was just way too big for this type of movie. But if it continues going where it's going, I could see this movie exceeding expectations. Maybe not exactly being the success they were hoping it would be, but certainly not the disaster that Lightyear was. So yeah, this movie looks like a step in the right direction for Pixar. It looks like it's going to be a much bigger hit for them than was Lightyear, and honestly a pretty decent surprise hit for the summer. Not a huge blockbuster, mind you, but certainly something that exceeded prior estimates and expectations. And finally, let's end the video off with the number 1 movie of the weekend, which was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, making 19 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of 316 million and a worldwide total of $559 million. This definitely was one of the biggest surprises and biggest outcomes of the weekend. I thought for sure it was going to be either Elemental or even No Hard Feelings that take the number 1 spot, but the fact that this movie was able to reclaim the number 1 spot over its former competition is absolutely insane, especially given the fact where it was the weekend prior to this. The film able to jump back to number 1 is insane. It shows the word of mouth is incredibly strong. It shows that this is right now the big summer movie of the moment right now. But also an important thing to note here is that this weekend I heard that there were several theaters this weekend across the country that gave the premium large format screens, you know, the stuff like IMAX, 40X, Screen X, you name it, that were originally playing The Flash back to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse this weekend. So I think that's also an important thing to note here in regards to this number 1 weekend for the film. But yeah, still, once again, given the factors that I stated before, this is still a very impressive weekend. It shows, again, the longevity and the power this movie has, how much it's resonated with audiences. And on the worldwide side of things, it has officially become the third film from Sony Pictures Animation to surpass $500 million worldwide. It surpassed Hotel Transylvania 3 and is now just $4 million behind The Smurfs to become the studio's highest grossing film ever worldwide. And given those statistics, I think it's safe to say it will be able to do that. So it will definitely, by the end of this week, or even by the time this video comes out, surpass The Smurfs to become the studio's highest grossing film, both domestically and worldwide. And saying this information, I don't think anyone is upset over that fact. And on the domestic side of things, it seems very likely that this movie will be able to surpass Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 to become the highest grossing movie of the summer and the second highest grossing film of the year. It just seems to have that much juice left in the tank for itself to get over that milestone. Worldwide, it's not happening. It's not surpassing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. That milestone is just already gone. But $600 million worldwide, I think, seems likely, and is still not a bad milestone for this movie to be, especially with a $150 million budget. That's not a bad place to be for your movie. So yeah, a great weekend for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. We'll see how much gas it has left in the tank, especially given that we're about to enter July and there's a lot more competition. We'll see how it faces off against those movies. But yeah, still a great result for this movie. And those were your top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, but we're not quite done yet as we've got another week ahead of us and new movies hitting theaters. And this weekend we have 2 new major wide releases, the first being Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. This is the latest feature from DreamWorks Animation, and to start off with the positives, I do think the fact that this is the second film this summer to be about mermaids will probably give this a bigger than expected boost. I think some people are going to compare the 2 mermaid movies to see which one is the better one. I think the fact that this is the weekend before 4th of July is also going to make some parents want to take their kids to go see this, to just do something for the weekend. And, you know, given the DreamWorks name, I think that's also attracted some attention for it. But the downside is that those are the only few positives I could see with this movie, as I'm not expecting a whole lot for this, unfortunately. The marketing has been surprisingly lackluster, especially coming from DreamWorks, where a lot of their movies usually kill it with their marketing, especially last year with The Bad Guys and Puss in Boots. But I've surprisingly barely seen anything for this movie, and it's caused the buzz to be rather low. I don't hear a lot of people talking about this movie or getting the word out. So yeah, while I don't think it's going to do as bad as estimates are saying it is, I don't see a really good opening for this movie either, though. And then there's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Now, to start with the positives once again, the marketing here has been excellent. I've been seeing tons and tons of promotion for this movie. I think the fact that it also has the Indiana Jones name is going to pique interest for a lot of people. And again, because it's the weekend before 4th of July, I think a lot of people are going to see this just to do something to celebrate the weekend. But the downside here is the buzz. I'm not seeing a lot of buzz for this movie. Certainly not the buzz I think they were hoping for this movie, because comparing this to something like Top Gun Maverick, at the point leading up to that film's release, there was just so much buzz. Everyone was talking about that movie, and there was so much excitement for it, where here I've seen a couple people talk about it, but that's pretty much it. I'm not seeing a lot of people saying they're really excited to see this movie or even talking about it at all to begin with, unfortunately. So I think that's one of the main reasons that's going to hurt it. I also think that there's going to be a lot of comparisons with this movie to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the last Indiana Jones movie, which disappointed a lot of people. So I think that's also going to hurt this movie, and reviews aren't all that great, unfortunately. They've been getting better, but still nowhere near the level of acclaim the original Indiana Jones films got. So yeah, while I'm expecting not a bad number, I think it's going to have a pretty good number considering the numbers we've been getting this month. I don't think it's going to be a great opening either. But we'll see how well this movie truly does, as well as the rest of the movies that land in the top 5 on the next Box Office Chat. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you all think of the results? Were you satisfied, unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links at the end of the video. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.